Some people might have a little rock and roll pneumonia.
You wanted the best, you got the best from my home studio on Long Island, New York. Welcome to Ian Scotto Rocks. I am Ian Scotto. I'll let you guys in on something. My home studio on Long Island, New York, came very close to becoming my home studio in South Florida, and I ended up just not doing it. During the winter, I get a little crazy, and I'm just like, why do I still live here? And then the weather comes along, and I'm currently pretty burnt, as you can see. And I'm like, I like being here. I have my friends and family here and all that. So this will continue to be for my home studio on Long Island, New York. Now, let's get into what I wanted to speak about today. A lot of you probably have seen by now, and we'll put all the footage up on the screen, David Lee Roth's triumphant comeback at M3 Fest in Maryland last night, as of when I'm recording this. And I would have loved to have gone, really, because I was thinking of moving stuff out of this apartment and then deciding not to. I haven't gone to as many shows in recent weeks, and it would have been awesome to see that, in addition to Warren DeMartini and Stephen Pearcy up on stage again, even though that really wasn't the big event, because they've already done a show at Mohegan Sun. So kind of like the excitement for that was sucked out, because we've seen it already. You can go on YouTube and see those clips. David Lee Roth, on the other hand, has not done a gig in 5 years, half a decade, and people didn't know what to expect. David Lee Roth was doing some EDM stuff. It was like, are we going to see EDM David Lee Roth? Are we going to see David do his DOR solo stuff? Or are we going to see him in classic form? And we absolutely saw him in classic Van Halen form, but with a twist. Things are a little different on stage, as you can see. He's got a great guitarist up on there, great band in general, really doing a killer job with everything. He's got this group of backup singers, and David always tries to make things a little bit different. It's not exactly what you would expect. And I think it's all purposely done. Like, it's a group of all black dudes, like not what you would expect from a David Lee Roth backup band, but they sounded great. And the big thing about this performance is the excitement and the fun he's having up there. To me, that's number one of a David Lee Roth performance. By and large, I've seen the feedback has been really good, and people are echoing the same things I'm saying here. But of course, you've got those one or two critics that are like, he's ruining the legacy. And I don't know what these people are talking about, man. I don't know what they expect of David Lee Roth, because the appeal of a David Lee Roth performance has actually been forever pretty much the showmanship and the excitement up there, and David Lee Roth having that giant smile and just looking like he's having a blast. But also the singing and the actual performance is great. Of what I've watched, he sounds awesome. And truthfully, I felt the same way when I saw Van Halen on their last tour. And of course, were those critics and those skeptics that want to see him do something that I don't think he's ever done, really. Like, if you want to see a guy hit every note, go watch the videos I did on great replacement singers. Go see a guy like Todd La Torre who's going to hit every note. That's never been the appeal of David Lee Roth. And to me, he looks like he's in classic form. Great set list of classic Van Halen songs, and everyone in the building looks like they had an absolute blast seeing him up there. And truthfully, I know that there was a lot of backlash with his performances 5-6 years ago, opening up for Kiss. People thought he really sounded lackluster up there. The energy wasn't there. And I'm sure he sees those comments, and he sees those people who were like, this is not what I'd expect of David Lee Roth. And I feel like this performance is a guy who had something to prove. And I think he wanted to say to all those shit talkers, hey, I've still got it. I'm still DLR. I'm still Diamond Dave.
You never heard of Diamond David Lee Roth?
And he absolutely is. And, some of the criticism that we've seen is of his own doing. He went on a rant not too far back about Wolfgang Van Halen and saying some things about him where he kept going, this schlemiel kid, this fucking kid.
This fucking kid, what he doesn't know is that these two dames work for the accounting firm that represent him, not me. But as usual, he, just like his uncle and his uncle's brother, stiffed him for tickets. I know they're going to do that, so I got ahead of things and I give them tickets. I put them way off to the side, and I'm not talking about Motley Crue groupies here. This is the real deal, and they're both carrying big satchel purses, right? Like Gucci, here we go. And he throws them out of the building. He's teaching me a lesson. What this fucking kid doesn't know, they're carrying the paychecks for all 82 people on the road crew. Nobody tells me till I'm parked in the middle of that fucking bridge that leads from 101 Thai Avenue, fucking Jones Beach. They think I'm gonna freak out.
You went on a whole rant about that. And I don't know, maybe those two guys clash behind the scenes. We know that the Van Halen camp and David Lee Roth camp, or David Lee Roth himself, have always clashed. There's always been that heated rivalry backstage, but somehow they always brought it as performers. So between some of his comments after Eddie Van Halen died and him, reportedly refusing to do any type of a tribute show, and him being the guy who just didn't want to do what Alex wanted to do, and that stuff that Alex said that David was, I guess, uncomfortable with there being a big Eddie Van Halen tribute to his brother. I don't really understand all of that. And then, of course, like I said, the EDM stuff, people are like, what is Dave doing? But he's coming back in classic form. And I'd play some of the clips here because there's a lot of great footage on YouTube. But you realize one of the problems with having a YouTube channel nowadays is even if you're not playing a studio version of a song or any of that, you're going to get flagged. AI now can just recognize, it's the melody. You can't monetize this video. But just go on YouTube, look up the performances of David Lee Roth from M3. And I think you'll have the same feeling as me if you're being objective. And we'll see what happens. Is he going to bring this show on the road? I would absolutely go see it. I'm really impressed with what he's doing. And this is not what he was doing opening for Kiss 5 or 6 years ago, and then he had to tap out and retire, I guess he said, because he canceled a few Vegas performances prior to this comeback performance, probably around the time of COVID and all that, if I were to look back. And yeah, people thought he was done, and they weren't sure what we were going to get. And many people said, man, he is really doing a beautiful tribute to these classic Van Halen songs. And I love it. He put together a great band. He's doing something new and different and exciting, and that is what you should expect of David Lee Roth. And he's bringing the dance moves up there. David loves dancing up there. He loves dancing. He loves performing. And I don't think you could fake that giant wide smile he has, as you could see on screen during these performances or during this particular performance. So, yeah, I hope to see more DLR on the road. He seems perfectly capable of doing it. And he's 70 years old, which, it's interesting, is of course getting up there in age. But you realize it's significantly younger than guys like Steven Tyler, guys like Paul Stanley. So he may still have a few more years in him, but much like many of these bands, you're only going to have a few more years, right? We're talking 5 years at the max, probably, to see these performers, much of which, many of whom I talk about on this channel. So yeah, you don't want to be saying 10 years from now, I should have gone out and seen them. So if he's out there on the road, it really would be cool to see. And I think, this hiatus of 5 years was good for him to rethink his performance and to do whatever else he was doing. We know that David Lee Roth is not a guy who just sits around. He lived in Japan at one time and learned sword fighting. He was an EMS at one time. He was doing emergency tech stuff, stuff so outside the realm of David Lee Roth and Van Halen, and that's him. He's a guy who lives life to the absolute fullest. So kudos to Diamond David Lee Roth for a killer performance. And I'm a little jealous to anyone who was out there at M3 Fest in Maryland last night and got to see him kick off this first performance in half a decade. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. If you're feeling a little generous, you could even leave us a super thanks. And you could check out the merch store in the link below for our great limited edition t-shirts and mugs. We've been getting some orders lately, and people are absolutely loving the quality of this stuff. And yeah, leave your comment below. Let me know what you think. And with that, if you want to click on this video right here, you're going to absolutely love it, because we've been working on a lot of great content here on Ian Scotto Rocks. News, deep dives, commentary, and more. So don't go anywhere. We've got plenty coming here on Ian Scotto Rocks.